All right, we got it. Yes. Okay. Thanks, Mike, and welcome everyone. This is going to be, I think, a very interesting panel that we're going to have. Several years ago, Corinne Sandy, who was at that time the PI for NCyTE, said you need to go to this BRICS conference in Santa Fe, New Mexico, and so I to see what they're doing with research with community colleges. It's really turned out to be one of the best initiatives for NCyTE to partner with the BRICS organization. The impact of building research, innovation, and community colleges, that's what BRICS stands for, is going to result in strategies and computing plans that anticipate enhanced research and education initiatives at two-year colleges. So these are the experts, the leaders of that, both from a regional perspective like BRICS Texas, as well as the national. Our panelists today, Dr. Tabitha Samuel, she's the co-principal investigator, the National Institute for Computational Services or Sciences at the University of Tennessee, Knoxville. Dr. Dhruva is a principal investigator at Texas A&M University in College Station, Texas, and Dr. Sallie K. James is the chancellor at San Jacinto College, which, by the way, is a newly designated CAE in cyber defense. So, at that, we're going to start off with. We'll have basically four questions, and I'm going to start with question one, and Drew's going to answer this. But what is BRICS? What is available today to community colleges through BRICS, and what is the potential of availability in the future?
Uh, Good morning, Stephen. Thank you for
Good
inviting us.
morning.
I guess it can be good afternoon in some parts of the country, so good afternoon as well. Uh, I prepared a couple of slides to guide us through this process, and then we can take questions and others can chime in as well. So I'll share my screen briefly, and we'll press this button, and hopefully everyone can see this. All right, fantastic. BRICS is a continuing effort that started at Texas A&M and UT Austin around 2017, and the idea was to support cross-institutional collaborative computing and how to make this possible. And we started with a simple question: how do UT Austin and Texas A&M work together? Turns out, that's a pretty difficult rivalry and a big rivalry that we had to address. And through this, BRICS was born over the years, and we've had support from several NSF programs to continue this work. And we were very grateful for all the amazing work that the National Science Foundation funding has enabled us to do. So our premise was that cyber infrastructure, and it enables research and academics every day. Now, your definition of cyber infrastructure will change depending on who you ask and what kind of computing they do. For some people, cyber infrastructure might mean a large, powerful desktop on the desk that they're using today to do some kind of data analysis. For other people, large cyber infrastructure can be a supercomputer that is being used to train some very large AI models or perform weather prediction simulations. So depending on who you're working with, the definition changes, but the impact of computing on academics and research is felt pretty much in every discipline today. Back when we started, one of our significant challenges was that cyber infrastructure, especially advanced cyber infrastructure, was being predominantly used at large, very well-resourced four-year institutions that had decades of legacy in managing, supporting, and offering these programs. And we really wanted these programs to be available to faculty and students at two-year institutions, at the smaller four-year schools, and build a continuing pipeline that made these resources available to every US student. There are different mechanisms to doing so. Our preferred approach was through regional collaborations and working with partners that included large schools, smaller schools, research and education networks, private industry, state governments, all of those groups. So everyone is part of this family. We try to treat it as one and build it. So BRICS, its primary goal was to bring research innovation to community colleges. We had a nationwide goal, and we really wanted to help adoption at smaller schools. And when we started back in 2019, we were often asked, is research happening at a small institution? Is research happening at a community college? And today we moved forward where everyone is building their AI ML model, or people are starting AI ML courses. And in cybersecurity, AI ML is going to just play a huge role in how things are being done. And so, yes, research, and especially computational research, is today being done, managed, or conceived of at different levels at other institutions. Which brings us to a next point, that not everybody is following the same roadmap, and there are different approaches. And we need a mechanism that respects people's needs, identifies the similarities, and starts building a culture that understands and appreciates the diverse needs of this community, but also offers a robust framework that people can rely on and use as they adopt new programs. Part of this involves increasing support for researchers, for faculty, for students, and offering software and ensuring that software is working. These were our original goals. We've continued to grow. As Stephen mentioned, he joined us in Santa Fe. Michelle Robinson joined us in Knoxville. Tabitha joined us in Santa Fe. So the community has grown. It has brought in more people, and we've organized 4 large community workshops since 2020. Our first workshop was in Levelland, Texas. Then we had a workshop in Corpus Christi, followed by Santa Fe, New Mexico, and then Knoxville, Tennessee. We've been featured on news items. We've been featured on resources, and our impact has been nationwide. So I apologize for the typo there, but our goals are to advance CI adoption. And so once again, we're looking at the needs, opportunities, and challenges. And this extends to the academic space. I cannot highlight how important it is to have curricular programs and academic programs also integrated in the space, because thinking of research alone while not thinking of academic programs is difficult, especially at a smaller school where academic programs are the predominant, most important component. We really have to include them. Once we include them, what are the lessons learned and what do the success stories look like? Highlighting them so that the community learns and grows organically from each other, and knowledge sharing is enabled. Finally, how do we build strategic growth models that can be leveraged at smaller schools and 2-year colleges? This is important because eventually, when push comes to shove, people are asked about sustainability, people are asked about funding, and how do we enable this? And we'll address some of these topics a little later. So for today's adventure, we've signed up different components. As Stephen said, there's some questions. So one is we're looking at the opportunities and challenges in the space. Cybersecurity and CAE programs represent a significant opportunity to collaborate, build, and use regional cyber infrastructure. So how do we help institutions develop platforms? What would the curricular and academic programs look like? Sallie K will talk a little about that, along with the workforce development opportunities. Tabitha will be talking about available resources, and we'll address some of the potential funding programs that are available as well. With that, I'll stop sharing.
Okay, thanks, Drew. I don't know if anyone else wanted, Tabitha or Sallie K wanted to say any more about that particular question.
I think Dhruv encapsulated pretty well.
Great. Okay, here's one for Sallie K. How can BRICS help advance cybersecurity, AI, research, and critical infrastructure for research computing at your institution? And this is maybe your institution is a community college, so that would be the focus.
Well, as Drew laid out the major goals of BRICS, and I've been a part of that since the excuse me, the 2017 initiation of BRICS as a co-PI. One of our goals, as he mentioned, is to do things for other community colleges and regions around the United States. And so last year, 2024, San Jacinto College proposed and was funded in what we call BRICS Texas. And so we're looking at this regionally, and Texas is a large geographic regional map. So we felt like that was a large enough region to just call it BRICS Texas. And what we've done is to actually incorporate all of the higher education institutions in Texas. And we have a network that's building. We have BRICS Texas has 3 major areas of focus. Our first area of focus, we have entitled it Research Challenges and Opportunities. And we have a chair that's overseeing that, actually from a small university, Sam Houston State University. Our second focus is on cybersecurity, or cyber infrastructure and cloud architecture. So we're looking at more of the hardware piece, the HPC, and we have a CIO from South Plains Community College that oversees that area. And then our third area, if you think about looking at, okay, what is the research going to entail? How are you going to deal with storage of the data and what you can do with it? Then you also have to look at the analytics and getting access to that storage. And so for that, we call that data access and data analytics. And we're looking at how to instruct students and their faculty in short courses, hopefully with some consistent curriculum ideas across the state. And for that, we've got an individual from Lone Star Community College leading up that one. So we have these 3 areas of focus, and we're working very closely with our Texas Higher Education Board. They have attended some of the BRICS conferences and liked what BRICS was all about. And so they are one of our partners and are allowing us to use what they call OER Texas as our website, our place to keep the minutes of our meetings. Anything that we do in those 3 focus areas, we put out on our OER Texas. And then they've also given us what we call out of these sub-hubs, we've got a 4th sub-hub that's a repository of information that we learn in each one of these committee meetings, or, areas of focus, so that people from around the state can register on BRICS Texas, the BRICS Texas hub, and the OER major hub, and get all of this information. Anybody in an institution in Texas can join and choose to attend the committee meetings that actually meet monthly. The second Tuesday of the month, we have our Research Challenges and Opportunities have a meeting. The third Tuesday of the month is our cyber infrastructure, cloud architecture meeting. And then the third Tuesday of the month is on data access and data analytics. We have people that attend all 3. We have individuals that only attend one of them. Right at this point, we have both colleges and universities participating. And so what it allows us to do is to share what research is going on in the state of Texas and how others can participate. We've got some research going on with Rice and San Jacinto College and another college in Central Texas, and they're looking at rat populations. And so they're pulling in data and resources from around the state looking at this. In another situation, we're looking at some areas of bird flight and what the migration of birds is in one part of the state and how it compares to another part of the state. So we are really finding some ways that people can overlap. Also looking at some data that we're getting out in outer space. We can collect data out there, but we need people to actually analyze some of this data. So BRICCs Texas really gets into the fine points of what BRICCs initiated. We're figuring out where we can collaborate in research. And when you collaborate, you have to have the HPC. One of the things in the HPC, the committee two, we've got the Texas Advanced Cyber Center that's out of the University of Texas, and they have some outdated nodes, clusters that they have made available for free to smaller hubs across Texas. They've already delivered some, and this also helps the community colleges show their students in their hardware courses how to put these clusters together. Then they also learn how they can store data for themselves. And many of the community colleges can't do research because they don't have storage for their data. Well, this is one way we're all working together to pull it all together. And I think we're being pretty successful. We've only been at it for 1 year, and we've got 2 R1 universities wanting to work with us and already working with us, several smaller community colleges, universities, and then we have a variety of community colleges working here, aside from some state agencies like, our Texas coordinating board, higher ed coordinating board, as well as the Cyber Center. So that's what we're doing in BRICCs Texas, but the ideas, the collaboration originated in BRICCs, and that's a part of it. And so when we go back and then we bring people from BRICCs Texas to some of the BRICCs workshops so that they can learn more and interact with other folks and learn what somebody else is doing in AI or what somebody else is doing in HPC, and really work together on all of this.
That sounds great. It's a great model for regional research activities, I think. So thank you.
And one thing I forgot to interject is that part of our project, because Texas is so large and because sometimes you get better interaction face to face, we have already had one workshop in the Gulf Coast region of Texas that's face to face for the people in that region. We're having one next fall of 25, up in the West Texas region. And then we're going to close out our grant and hopefully get more. We know you never know about those things. But it will be in more of the South Central area of Texas. So we'll have some face-to-face opportunities for workshops.
Great. Thank you, Sallie K. Okay, the next question is for Tabitha. And this question is, what is the existing supercomputing or other critical infrastructure for research computing available to community colleges and universities? What increased high-powered computing capacity may also help support AI, LLM usage and initiatives? We see your slides. You're muted.
How about now?
Yep.
Excellent. So I wanted to quickly go over what are the capabilities available both nationally and regionally for researchers to be able to do their work. So kind of dividing this into two pieces. Let's look at it from a national perspective, and I've got a few exemplars from a regional perspective. And my gray box is there, kind of want to just say that, yes, there are lots more out there, but I'm just going to focus on these few. So the first thing I wanted to talk about was access. So in the national cyber infrastructure scene, there has been an effort to collate all the national cyber infrastructure machines. So think of your big iron machines, the ones that are $20 million worth and operate for 5 to 11 years. These are systems coming out of UT Austin, San Diego Supercomputing Center, Pittsburgh Supercomputing Center, the National Center for Supercomputing Applications at Champaign-Urbana. So these are machines which deliver your big science. So the idea behind these three organizations was, instead of having different set of ways to do operations, different ticketing systems, different interfaces, which just complicates things for researchers, let's try to simplify that and just have a single point of entry and make things look a lot more similar for researchers and make things easier so that your time to science is really low. From the day you want to start doing science to getting the paperwork done, let's try to reduce that as much as possible. So this has been going on for a good long while, as you can see from the slide. So 2001, we had the TerraGrid. That went on for about 10 years. And all these three projects are funded by the National Science Foundation. The follow-on to TerraGrid was the EXCEED environment, which was the Extreme Science and Engineering Discovery environment, which ran for another 11 years. And today we have Access, which started in 2022. So Access, you can think of it as a conglomeration of all your big iron machines, but also services and everything that actually makes it work, because there's no point in just having machines sit there. You need a bridge between researchers and how to use these machines. So Access brings all of that under one big umbrella. So a few things of what is actually available within Access. So you have computing systems with core counts, memories, different core counts, different memory sizes, different kinds of architectures. I know Texas A&M itself has a few systems within the Access ecosystem, GPUs, vector processors, FPGAs. So whatever the architecture you want, you probably are going to find something useful for you in Access. But in addition to computing, as Sallie K was saying, data storage is very important. So they have archival, object, and tiered data storage available. Data repositories, software workflow managers. Again, all of this gets very hard without good networking. So they have a dedicated network link called ConnectNet. And finally, the people to enable all of this to work well. So you have your CI professionals and support tools, and finally monitoring to make sure things are up and available. So now that I talked a little bit of what's available, this is a very interesting map of who's using this. So as you can see, the Access resources are very widely used across the country. So your darker, bigger circles are about 19 million more of credits. And that's what Access systems call any kind of service unit. Anytime you want a computing time on a system, it's measured in terms of a credit. So this is really how widely used Access is all across the country. So the other really good and interesting piece about Access that makes it really unique and interesting to everybody is that it is free for all researchers to use. You do not need a supporting grant to be able to use it. You could just say, hey, this is what I'm interested in doing. This is the work that I want to do. Can I get some time on any of these systems, please? And one of the great things about the NSF is that they have started funding a lot of these systems. So there's actually time available for absolutely everyone. During the time of EXCEED, systems used to be oversubscribed, so there was more requests than there were system. Today, it's the opposite case, which is very good for all of us. So switching gears a little bit, I also wanted to talk about the National Artificial Intelligence Research Resource Pilot. That's a mouthful. It's called NAIR. So NAIR is a task force that was established by the National AI Initiative Act of 2020. In June 2021, it was co-chaired by the Office of Science and Technology Protocol at the White House and the National Science Foundation. So the idea behind NAIR was to really energize AI innovation and work at the national academic level, and really an investigation to see how do we bring the private and the public together to form something substantial in terms of AI for the country. So the task force report provides a roadmap for how you actually do this and standing up a national research infrastructure. So the product of the NAIR task force was the executive order, which launched the NAIR pilot. So among them are many AI-related directives to federal agencies. One of the very interesting things about NAIR is that it is a private-public partnership. So in addition to all the resources available through Access, which are quite a few, you also have all these private sector resources that are available to you. And again, within NAIR, access to resources are free. So imagine having access to AWS and things like Google Cloud, etc. But if you look at this list, the other interesting thing is that you also have access to the model. So you're looking at Hugging Face, you're looking at OpenAI, etc. So there's a lot of private availability within the NAIR ecosystem. So the NAIR pilot allocations process, so this is just where you go to get a little bit more information about the resources, as well as how you can apply to them. So quick difference between what is Access and what is NAIR. Where do you go for what? So your Access is, you usually go to Access for your long-term research and educational initiatives. Think about things like, I'm a research professor and I've got 3 or 4 students, we're working on this multi-year project, we need computing time. Access is where you go. NAIR pilots are for your short-term projects where you want immediate turnaround and results. Access has all project types. So if it's science related, you can apply through Access. NAIR has a very AI singular focus there. And then most projects are approved within 1 business day in Access. And one of the very good things, or one of the good changes that happened between XSEED and Access was they really simplified the applications process in Access. Within XSEED, it used to be a very complicated multi-page request that you put in no matter how much time you wanted. Today, if you just want to try things out and just have a small allocation for enough for classrooms, enough for small research projects, you don't have to put in more than a paragraph or a page for a request. The NAIR pilot is a little more effort on the request itself, and it takes about 12 weeks for processing. So now that I've talked a little bit about the national ecosystem, I wanted to switch a little bit and talk about the regional, because as both Sallie, Kay, and Dhruva were saying, this is really where a lot of the good work in computing happens. So there are a plethora of regional computing collaboratives all across the country. Name the region and there is probably one there. But I'm going to talk about 2 primary ones here. One is Launch out of Texas A&M, and the other is One Oki out of the University of Oklahoma. So the Launch is a collaboration of about 6 teams that work together to support students, and it is a regional computing system of both CPUs and GPUs that's available to all of the Texas A&M system. So, and it also uses cost-efficient models to make sure that things are easily and readily available and are available at scale. The next one I wanted to talk to you about was One Oki, or the One Oklahoma Cyber Infrastructure Initiative. So One Oki is a statewide advanced digital services collaboration, which is led by Oklahoma higher education institutions. And you can see in this image on this slide, it's a good mix of both academic and non-academic institutions. So there are about 100 institutions, and it's about equally divided between your academic and non-academic institutions. One of the very interesting outcomes out of the One Oki initiative was a policy now that any system that goes into production within the Oklahoma cyber infrastructure academic space will be available to all of Oklahoma research as a whole. So there are no systems now deployed just for a particular university or just for a particular campus. Everything is available to everyone in the state. The other interesting piece about One Oki is what I talked about earlier was systems are great, availability to systems is great, but if you don't have the network, things really slow down. So One Oki also serves as a core of a multi-institutional high-speed research network known as the One Oklahoma Friction-Free Network, or OFFN, which serves about 30 higher education entities across the state. So these are just two very good examples about how computing infrastructure at one particular institution or one particular region is shared by everybody in the region itself. And beyond systems, there are things that are usually shared is also things like training, internships, and things like that. So I think one of the biggest problems with cyber infrastructure at the whole is that we have a lot of things going on. We just don't do a very good job talking about them and advertising them. So if you look around, there's actually a ton of different trainings available for free, a ton of different opportunities for students available for free. So it's just getting the word out. So I think I'm done with that.
Okay, great. Thank you, Tabitha. And the last question, I think I'll start with Drew, and you all can chime in as you would like. But what funds are available? How do the academic institutions apply for funding and their support mechanisms?
Stephen, thank you. So that's actually the question at the back of everyone's mind, right? Like, what kind of money is available? And, I've got to start with the regular caveat that we're living in interesting times where the landscape changes pretty much every hour, depending on information coming in. So, what I can talk about is a little bit about the programs that have extended for several decades. So a couple of things in terms of funding for large scale computing. So just pulling back on highlights from what we said earlier. So the National Science Foundation and NCyTE also, I believe, is funded by the National Science Foundation. It's made several computing resources available around the country for faculty and researchers at small schools for free use. So when researchers use GPUs, CPUs on those resources, they're not paying for time. They're getting them for free. Those resources already exist. Those are given through Access and NAIR. The application process is straightforward. So we'll talk about the second aspect of funding it, which is what if you want to bring a resource to your campus? And Sallie Kelpicker new here. I know you. So if Sallie K wants to host a GPU cluster and do some kind of large model training at San Jacinto College, and she's working with her CIO, Rob, and trying to figure out, okay, how do we get money for this? We're excited about this, but how do we get money? What are the programs we apply to where we can get some of the funding? So the program that funds BRICCs and funds several of these programs for which community colleges, smaller institutions are not only are they eligible to apply, but this program has a rich history of supporting smaller institutions. Like reading the solicitation, you will notice that there's language in there that understands the challenges that smaller institutions face and the various aspects that Tabitha referred to on what needs to be built to build a complete computing ecosystem. So this is reflected in various areas in this program. I call them elements, program officers call them areas, and the areas are largely you need networking to improve data flows. And I'm sure there are plenty of security people on this call who are looking at data flows and there's a lot of research there and academic programs that can be built around these. And these networks can be used. You can study them for intrusion and all kinds of interesting things. Next, it's the computing resource itself. This computing can be used for academic programs. It can be used for research programs. And you can see that the ranges of funding are largely from $700,000 to $1.4 million for both the computing and the networking side. Then there's networking integration and applied innovation. So after you won an Area 1 award, say you want to do something really interesting or innovative with your networking program, you can build that up and do some interesting research, which, sounds like cybersecurity will be right up there. And especially people are looking at some NSF ATE funding, that's the Applied Technology in Education program that I'm assuming people are familiar with, or if they're looking at NSF SAT-C program, that is the cybersecurity program at NSF. And this is where it all starts coming together. Then there is data storage and digital archives for storing data, which is being produced. Again, if people are using large data sets for cybersecurity, if they're using large language models, it's no longer possible to do those things on a laptop. You need some storage on campus, so you can apply for funding there. And finally, maybe you're looking at all of this and you're just thinking, how do I get started on this process? This is just overwhelming. There were way too many choices. So you can apply for funding to develop a strategy for your campus or your region. And you can get about $100,000 to $200,000 to build that effort. BRICCs can help you BRICCs can support up to various levels in all these programs. We have assisted universities in developing proposals for pretty much all of these programs. We are actively participating in these programs with schools and universities. So if someone on this call wants to apply for funding from the NSF Star program, please reach out to us. We can help you write the proposal, implement it, and do other things like that. Oh, and I should mention once again, BRICS is led by Texas A&M University. So it's an academic program. We don't charge for time. We don't do those things. So it's literally just help you put that proposal together. Okay, next. This is the next step up. So now you won your CC Star Award and you're like, well, I'm becoming a I'm maturing in my journey on campus cyber infrastructure. And this is where you can apply for major research instrumentation awards. Some of these awards I've seen community colleges participate in these as co-institutions with a larger institution where um, I have seen models where several smaller institutions group together and apply for this. I've also seen smaller institutions apply for funding here. There are different streams of funding as well, and this would be after the CC Star Award. Finally, we spoke a lot about training and making sure that our students, our faculty, our researchers can use these machines effectively. So the machines are there. Tabitha spoke about the resources that are present today, the NAIR and the access allocated resources. And then we saw the regional resources. But it's one thing to have the computing available, and it's a different thing to make sure that you can get on the computers and use them. So with Sallie K, we have the PACES program, and the PACES program organizes training events for faculty and researchers at smaller institutions and community colleges. Sallie K organized a training session at San Jacinto College in Houston, where we had faculty from the Houston area participate and learn about some basics on how to use these machines, some programming with Python and R, and some AI ML. And we're going to offer a 5-day program as well, where people can come and really immerse themselves in how to advance these. And we would love to have people from this community participate on this. I'm going to plug another program because there's a lot of interest with AI ML, and this one's called ByteBoost. And ByteBoost is in its second year, and we'd encourage you to apply, especially if you're looking at AI ML. I know everyone's very excited about AI ML. So if you're at the category where you want to come and do something very exciting with AI ML on some of the world's fastest computers and build a resource for cybersecurity, we are welcoming applications. And this includes travel to Pittsburgh later this summer. So it won't be as hot as Texas. I'm in Texas. I think of summers as being hot. So you get to go up north and spend a week in Pittsburgh and cross all the bridges the city has. They claim they have the most bridges in America. With that, I'll stop. Tabitha, Sallie K, any thoughts?
So I think one of the things that I would like to bring up is through all the different resource, especially specifications or the NSF calls that Dhruva brought up, there are different requirements for how the money is spent. So that's something to be mindful of as well. Some of them have an equal 50-50 split between hardware and people. Some of them are almost all towards hardware with very little for people. So depending on how your organization is set up and staffed, one or the other might be a better option for you. So that's something to always keep in mind, is look at how the funding is being allocated and what are the requirements around that.
And one thing I want to say about connecting it back to BRICS, we meet weekly to discuss what opportunities are out there, to formulate what our next workshop is going to look like, who can be incorporated into it, but also a very strong piece of the agenda is keeping people up to date on what new funding is out there, what continued funding is out there, and having a true discussion about how people can collaborate together. That's another real benefit of BRICS, is that, and I think it's more between Tabitha and Dhruva's, their minds are a repository of knowledge about NSF and what the funding opportunities are, and that's a real benefit of belonging.
I would echo that. I attend those meetings weekly as well, and always learning and finding about new opportunities through that BRICS. So if there's any questions from our audience, please, you can either put it in the chat or you can just go off a mute and ask the question to the panel. Okay, any?
I was going to ask if we wanted to join that meeting on Tuesday, is there a link that we could, you could give us so we could invite ourselves to that, or how do we join that?
So I just thank you for asking. I should have included a QR code on my slides. I apologize for that. I added the link to the chat here, and our meeting times are 2 p.m. Central on Fridays. And so if you're free, please join us. It's an open meeting, and everyone's welcome.
And you're working on a workshop that's going to happen in July right now. So hopefully we'll be working with BRICS. NCyTE will be working that along with another organization out of Norwich University. So we may have some additional day on that workshop, but we'll let you know.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm really impressed with the way things were set up with Oki. So with my being in the Commonwealth of Virginia, how could we wrap up an organization to operate in that same capacity to benefit, the other institutions here?
So two things. One Oki didn't start as large as it did. So it started with an MOU, I think, between the two large universities.
Gotcha.
And then it expanded from there. Two, I would exceedingly encourage you to go talk to Henry Neiman. He is one of the leaders from the One Oki program, and he's always talking about, hey, we need other people doing the same thing. And he's very, very enthusiastic about talking about the program. So Henry,
I'm sorry, could you repeat his name, please? My
Henry
apologies.
Neiman. Let me just find his email for you, and I'll send it to you.
John,
Awesome. Thank
John,
you.
could you
Hi.
repeat which institution you're at?
I'm at Chakravorty Community College over here in Virginia Beach, Virginia.
Okay, so Virginia actually has some really interesting MOUs in place. One of the, I want to say, if my memory serves me right, the first regional collaboration that comes to my mind started in Virginia. It was either
Okay.
Pennsylvania or Virginia, and was on the research and educational network front. So I think your lowest hanging fruit might be to look into not UVA, Virginia Tech.
Virginia Tech?
Out of Virginia Tech, there's a regional and educational network MOU that ties most of the Virginia institutions together. So you can use that model to build up something which is more academic and computing focused as well. Virginia Tech, I think this is a recorded call, so let's be careful. So Virginia Tech and University of Virginia have more mature CI organizations. Virginia Tech is very well resourced. And so
Awesome.
there's some very friendly and like good people there who can work with you on this front too. The other thing you have going for you in Virginia is you're very close to the National Science Foundation, right?
Okay.
So even like getting a strategy grant started across Virginia would be very doable, and it does not require participation from the larger school just to get a strategy program funded. Like it's not a requirement in the solicitation. It's good to include them. It's always helpful to have everyone in the same room and do it together. But John, maybe that is like the lowest hanging fruit.
John, and
I
another
appreciate it.
interesting thing out of Virginia, and I totally this eclipsed my mind until now, is this program called Accord, which is I think about 13 institutions from Virginia coming together to provide a secure computing platform.
And the program is called Accord.
Yes, here's the link.
Thank you.
So
All right.
this is actually really interesting because, as most of us know, trying to get the cybersecurity agreements across university lines got to become a real pain. And Virginia kind of figured that out as to how to do it at the statewide level. So the Accord is a very, very interesting piece of work coming out of the out of the state.
Okay.
You're muted.
Bear with me. I'm plugging this into my mobile, so I'm kind of hopping between the Zoom meeting and plugging this into my battery.
Okay, thanks, John.
You're welcome, and thank you for the abundance of information, folks. Thank you.
Fidelis, you have your hand up. Go ahead and go off mute.
Thank you, Stephen. I have two things. One is a testimonial. I got involved in Santa Fe. That's when I joined BRICCs. My name is Fidelis Gamu, Houston Community College. We are a community college, and I just want to chime in and say the benefit we as a community college have received as being exposed to BRICS and BRICS Texas. I was just at a workshop at Jacinto College that Sallie K hosted a couple of weeks ago. We, as a community college, started an AI program. We launched an associate's degree in artificial intelligence. And then we did so well that we got approved for a bachelor's. But what we didn't know when we started what the computing needs of an AI program. We still don't know that much, but thanks to me, I don't remember how I was invited to BRICS. I just remember joining Santa Fe at the meeting. Dhruva, Tabitha, Sallie K was right about their knowledge about funding, and HPC. I met Lars from TAC, and of course, Steven's always been around. He's our mentor, has been guiding us with our cybersecurity program since we started 2017. And so that's testimony from me that community colleges like ours are benefiting from these BRICS and BRICS Texas, programs in our state. The last thing I wanted to say is a question, comment. Tabitha and Dhruva, I'd like to know more about the C-STAR program. I'd like to know how a community college or somebody as a community college can possibly apply for funding. I know we'll probably have to be attached to an R1 university. So maybe one of our Friday meetings, you can take, you can address that one. I appreciate it. Thanks, Stephen.
Thank you, Fidelis. Happy to do so.
There's also a question in the chat about any advice for funding for nonprofit and non-state such as PR, and how can we collaborate from PR? Eduardo, you may want to go off mute and
hello everyone. Hello everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for the invitation. I recently founded this organization, a nonprofit organization based in Puerto Rico, and that is the PR stands for. I'm working on several projects with related to cybersecurity and AI, and I am in pursuit of requesting some funds, and I would like to have some advice on how can I get some those funds be funded, and also offering myself our organization to support any effort that is being done in the U.S. With these community colleges, or I'm part of the NCyTE community, so I'm open to work in a collaborative effort, and also I'm looking for funding. So if you can just give me some advice on that regard, thank you.
Stephen, I can take a part of that. Eduardo, I can I'll just share something. Stephen, can I share my screen for a moment? Thank you. So Eduardo, I'll point you to the NSF solicitation pages, and one of the key things you can look for when you read a NSF solicitation is as you search down, you can see number of awards, and this is the section you can focus on, which is eligibility information, who may submit proposals. So within the CC Star program, you can see that what the purpose is, some specific proposals are encouraged, and then you can see that nonprofit, non-academic organizations may submit programs to these awards. So if you see this language, then that is a program you can apply for. Sometimes you'll see language which says that only institutions of higher education may apply. So depending on that, you can see how these different programs are catered. I believe CC Star may have, don't quote me on this, please, but I believe CC Star may have made awards in Puerto Rico as well. So but some awards are more like geographically restricted, some are more restricted in scope of work. So if you just read that section in the NSF solicitation, that would be very helpful.
I have a question, because for example, I wrote a proposal for the NSF 25531. That is, I think it branches from that proposal, and it has 4 parts, and I work on a first part, core, should I say. And my proposal is basically complete. All I need is a copy. The proposal is very lengthy, and basically that is one of the things that one of the challenges that I'm facing, that I'm working on some proposals. I just went through the whole proposal, I wrote it, but I lack of a copy. And sometimes the problem with the NDA, the non-disclosure agreements, that sometimes people are hesitant to get engaged with this kind of projects. So if anyone I can share with, I can share my effort, and at the same time be willing, or I don't know, to share my thoughts and what I have done, would be great. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Eduardo. Yeah. So we're over time here, so we'll close it out. And there is a QR that you can please complete the survey. And I want to thank Tabitha and Drew and Sallie K. This was, I think, very informative, and an opportunity for community colleges, as well as, of course, universities to collaborate. And please join BRICCs on Friday, so you can, yeah, if you're really interested in finding out more, that's a good forum to do that. So thank you again and have a good weekend. Mike, you want to wrap anything up here?
No, Stephen, I think he's covered it. Have a great weekend. Again, thanks for attending the meeting today. We appreciate everybody's turnout. And we'll try to get links out to everybody. I'm going to tap Drew and Tabitha and Sallie for the information they shared with us today.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having us. This was wonderful.
Yes, thank you
Thank you.
very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Very much. All right.
Thanks for the welcome.
Have a great weekend. Bye-bye.
Enjoy the weather out there.